Hi, and welcome to Group 18 Project, a business demand analysis for electric scooters. The members of this group are Marjo Dela Cruz, Melanie Tantry, Shane Gunter, and of course myself, Doug Northcott. The objective of this project is to predict the potential demand for electric scooters based on available bike sharing data, and to design a strategy in launching the electric scooter service in international markets. Potentially, we might even provide a machine learning algorithm to allow for quick and easy adjustments to the forecasting. This is because, as Richard de Neuville said, a professor at MIT, the forecast is always wrong. In this statement, he was not actually saying that the forecast is not needed or beneficial. He was more just talking about the number of variables in play at any one time. As most forecasting methodologies are nothing more than trying to drive forward while only looking in the rearview mirror. Therefore, the ability to adjust one's forecast is much needed as the variables change, like the weather in this case. First, a little background. Last year, when my company posted me at a medical clinic in downtown Santa Ana, California, I first saw these electric scooters just parked on almost every street corner. Initially, I was so concerned that some company had abandoned these scooters en masse. I reached out to the local police department. To my surprise, I was greeted with laughter and informed about this being a growing trend. Since this time, I have seen these scooters in multiple cities around the USA, including Scottsdale, when I was visiting relatives, and with a brief visit to the Thunderbird offices. Now, even my dad is talking about getting in on this trend and purchasing himself a more advanced electric scooter for use in the rural UK. After a little research on the internet, I was able to find that this is a rapidly growing trend expected to grow by 60% by 2025. The market was just valued at just over 5 million in 2017 and is expected to grow to 8.5 million by 2025. And this is just in the USA alone. This will make the electric bike and scooter market nearly 30 to 50% of the entire bicycle market. The basic goal of data analysis is to gain an understanding of particular trends in regards to a situation. To achieve this, there are various issues we have to look at, such as the data itself. Does it need cleaning and is it valid? Thankfully, for this project, the dataset has already been provided with 16 variables and 131 observation lines, which is already stored in SAV format, ready for use by the package SPSS, therefore negating a lot of the need for data cleaning, which can often be a lengthy process. As with the rise of big data in the business world, data sets are often becoming more and more dirty. In the New York Times article, for big data scientists, janitor work is a key hurdle to insights. Data scientists, according to this article, spend 50 to 80% of their time just cleaning the data before it can be explored for useful nuggets. Although this project has a fairly clean dataset provided, we still might need to investigate areas such as normality and investigate potential outliers. Other goals of data analysis include the need for visualization with trend and predictive analytics to confirm hypothesis.
The next thing that I want to cover is the hypothesis that we will be testing and looking at. We're going to be looking at two hypotheses, and we came up with these hypotheses by looking at some outside research. The first one that we have is locations with good weather will have a greater demand for bikes. We believe that all year round is obviously going to have a greater demand. Also, heavy vacation spots in the wintertime will keep demand up. We also see that in nicer weather places, good weather, there is a higher physical activity since a bike, a scooter has to do with outdoors traveling. We think that that increase of physical activity is going to translate to where someone would want to ride electric scooter over sitting in a car. The next thing that we're going to look at is there will be a greater demand during weekends and holidays. during breaks, especially in the winter time, there is going to be an increased demand because people are getting out of colder weather and going to the warmer weather. So this kind of helps correlate to past hypothesis. So we'll probably see some overlapping data points within these two, as there will be an increase in demand, as well as an increase in demand during those holidays and those weekends in those nicer places. People tend to vacation when it is colder. A few challenges that we came up with that we're looking at. The first one is locations with good weather may have restrictions due to high tourist destinations and competition as Uber taxis. Since this is a brand new technology, there might not be laws in place right now. So this might be early stage data that we will be working with, as there will be laws that come into place. One example that we look at is Uber and Lyft. In certain locations, you do have certain laws for taxis, and you also have the local economy has to fully adopt that and change the laws to match that. With that being said, the early adopters might not be as present as we believe, and also the lack of lanes for scooters currently really not set up. What are the laws behind if someone to drive drunk on a scooter? It might be banned in public places where it says no skateboarding. Is the bike lane okay? There's a lot of questions regarding this. Maybe at first it might be adopted, but over time we might see a decrease. Also, this could be disrupting certain areas, and also there could be an increase in theft. We see bike theft going on right now. Will that same theft happen? And that might cause an increase in demand just because it's in places with higher bike theft and scooter theft. Another thing that we look at is college campuses, might be more in favor of this transportation. This could actually increase demand during the weekday compared to the weekends. In the holiday season, we actually might see a slowdown of demand, especially in college campuses that are in heavily use of these scooters. So it's going to be interesting to see how the data stacks up depending on certain areas and certain college campuses, and big college campuses such as Arizona State University that has a really large footprint. Also in like Florida, which has some really large universities that could really take advantage of this. And then going back to another challenge is if those universities potentially outlaw those scooters, which is something that is definitely happening at Arizona State as we speak. As far as the data and what we're going to go over, these are some of the variables that will be examined as far as the continuous, the temperature, normalized temperature, humidity, and wind speed. We're also going to look at some categorical data as far as record, the date, season, year, month, holiday, weekend, working day, and the weather, and also count response variables, casual users, and also total rental bikes. As far as planning and how we're going to go about this with the two hypotheses, some of our method is to gather the data and clean the data, any outliers involved. Also do an EDA analysis to validate the data to the hypothesis. Also visualize the data and do full analysis. And also if we can make some machine learning models to predict the future trends, that will be great. And also to look at potential future laws that may come into roadblock the data and maybe causing the data to appear better than it is. So that will wrap up what we are going to be working on with this project, and we hope that these hypotheses will turn out very significant.
Thank you, Shane. Looking to our data, we have 16 variables and 731 lines of data observations. In the beginning, we will need to check for normality, especially concerning the response variables. Our main response variable is total bikes. This is a total count of all the bikes used and is a combination of both casual and registered users of the service. As you can see from the graph, with a standard deviation of 1937 and a mean of 4504, this data does display normality. Casual users is the count of users who use the bike share service infrequently. This distribution with a mean of 848 is significantly positively skewed. This is likely caused by the nature of casual use, as if someone is likely to use the service on multiple occasions, they will probably register with the service. Registered users is the count of users who have registered with the service, and this follows a normal distribution. Due to the likelihood of casual users who use the service becoming registered, for this analysis, we will not consider either of these two variables. Performing a box plot analysis of the response variable, total bikes, you can clearly see that there is no outliers, so this aspect of the data does not need to be investigated any further. Looking at the variables season, month, and year, you can see a slight increase in warmer months. However, from this graph it is not visibly significant. This does cause some concern, as this data is from Washington, D.C., and where it is known for cold winters. Upon further investigation, however, this graph masked a lot of effects due to the 39% growth of the surface over the 2-year period of the data. Let's consider the first hypothesis. Locations with good weather will have a greater demand for bikes. We will analyze this first. In our data provided for our study, there were several weather variables in the dataset. Looking at the first categorical weather variable is titled weather. This variable has 4 categories that cover the entire spectrum of weather possible, from bright sunshine through to heavy rain and snow. However, there were no Category 4 days of heavy rain or snow with any bike usage recorded. By visualizing our data, you can already see a clear trend of decreasing weather conditions leading to significant decreases in bike usage. Therefore, next, we will submit this variable and all other weather variables to further analysis to check for significance and trends for prediction. Looking at the weather variable further through analysis of variance, we can see how important this variable is to predicting demand for bikes and scooters. Performing a post hoc analysis of variance to account for multiple levels, we can see that the weather is significant to all 3 levels, to a level of 0.00 significance, with 32 to 698 degrees of freedom. By utilizing multiple comparison, we can account for the type 1 error, seeing that all factors were of this 0.00 significance. Furthermore, when we factored in the months with the weather, the significance was recorded to a 0.01 level, demonstrating the high likelihood that this service was seasonal. Analyzing the scale weather variables further by using a bivariate correlation analysis, you can see that all variables correlate. A 1.0 correlation is the maximum, with 0 being the minimum you can have for a Pearson correlation. Compared to total bikes, a temp variable, being a normalized feeling temperature in Celsius, has the highest correlation of 0.631. Temp had a Pearson correlation right behind this of 0.627, which is a normalized temperature in Celsius. These 2 variables, when visualized, you can clearly see the correlation between these variables and the response variable. Humidity and wind speed had negative correlations with total bikes, with humidity having a correlation of negative 0.101 and wind speed having a negative correlation of minus 0.235. What this means is the higher the wind speed, the higher humidity, the lower the total number of bikes needed that will be used for the rideshare program. The foundation of most forecasting is regression, and even our RStudio analysis that was done at the beginning of this project to give us a quick insight included regression models and its machine learning. As weather was the most important and significant variable of the categorical variables, we submitted the scalar weather variables to linear regression with successful results. As you can see from the PP plot of the regression, there is a significant level with temp, humidity, and wind speed all having significant regressions of 0.00 and a temp being significant to a level of 0.018. Furthermore, with a regression standardized residual between plus or minus 3 homoscedasticity was achieved. Therefore, the results can be deemed as good and valid. Looking at hypothesis 2, there will be a greater demand on weekends and holidays. When visualizing the data for the holiday variable, using mean average of total bikes to account for the difference in the number of days, you can clearly see an unexpected outcome. With a mean difference of 792 in the mean from non-holiday to holiday, you can see that this is going against what we expected in our initial research. Our initial expectation was that from our research that more people would be using the service on a holiday due to having more available free time. However, it appears to be the opposite. When applying an independent two-tailed t-test to a level of 95%, you only get a significance level of 0.208, therefore meaning the t-test was non-significant. With equal variances assumed, a two-tail significance of 0.065 therefore was also non-significant between the two groups. Although there was a mean difference of 792, with overall means around the 4,000 level for total bikes, this therefore was non-significant at the 95% level. This led us to believe that the null hypothesis, demand for bikes doesn't change whether it is a holiday or not, was correct. Our second hypothesis was looking at demand compared to whether it was a working day or a weekend or holiday. Visualizing the usage against weekday and working day variables, you can see only marginal differences. Therefore, we will need to submit working day variable to a t-test to see if there is any significant difference between groups. With a mean difference of just 254 between groups, working day to weekend or holiday, and a significance of 0.098, there is no significant difference to a 95% level. Therefore, the alternative hypothesis, there will be greater demand on weekends and holidays, is not supported. Initially, when our project hit a sticking point, to gain direction, one of our group members decided to run the data through an R gradient boosted model to gain insights. As you can see, due to the 39% growth over the 2-year period, the year variable and the temperature variable dominate the data when using total bike as the response variable. These two variables account for over 50% of the influence of the Gaussian gradient boosted model created. The weather has significant effect on demand for scooters. Demand is seasonal and doubles in April as temperatures in Washington, D.C. hit 67 Fahrenheit or 20 degrees C. Other variables such as humidity, wind speed do have a correlation with bike demand, but not as close as temperature. Furthermore, if days have really bad weather, there will not be a demand whatsoever. The alternative hypothesis is proven. Days with good weather will have a greater demand. The second hypothesis of increased demand on weekends and holidays is not proven and potentially might even be the opposite, although this was not proven beyond a reasonable doubt and would require further study. Therefore, once a baseline has been established and local socioeconomic factors have been considered, it is likely that scooter demand can be predicted from weather variables. The biggest factor when looking at these figures was the year. Over the 2 years that the study was recorded, the service saw a 39% growth. However, on a daily basis, this single biggest factor was actually the weather conditions, with the temperature being the number one. With linear regression and machine learning, there seems to be an effective way of predicting scooter demand in high population centers with some accuracy. With a company wanting to enter the e-scooter market, there are now far greater issues. than just predicting demand by the weather. Throughout 2018 and into 2019, companies like Lime and Bird e-scooter rideshare programs skyrocketed with usage, with the rideshare systems being started in all major cities in the USA and Europe. This has led Bird and Lime to become the first companies to scale up to $1 billion in just 1 year, and due to this have gained cult status in the process. This was shown by South Park creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone when they created a show that was around e-scooters and was set on a Halloween night, where the police informed the public that if trick-or-treaters are to use e-scooters, they will be able to cover more ground. Therefore, it is recommended that the citizens of South Park will need at least $6,000 worth of candy in their house to make it through the night. Although, with the fun atmosphere surrounding e-scooters, with all the increased incidents in the emergency rooms and some deaths and nuisance complaints, cities are creating new legislation. Many cities are requiring people to use driving licenses, and cities like Santa Monica, Milwaukee, and San Francisco have been known to suspend scooter use and have them all pulled off the streets so that they can enforce new legislation. All of this needs to be considered when an e-scooter company is entering a new market